I think we've already seen it as we look into picks and bans. A bit of a maybe reminder from the last game. It was the Na Lee Sin combo that we saw out of iNTZ, and that's suddenly no longer available for the team. EDG giving a lot of respect over to the Brazilian squad.
But on the other side, CB LoL squad also banning away the Poppy, and I actually think this is just as significant as Gnar and Lee Sin being taken away, simply because this was kind of like the biggest adaptation that EDG made, and Poppy's really been the breakout pick, especially against Lee Sin in particular. It's a very safe, very conservative pick, and so I think putting Mouse in more of a danger zone, you know, forcing him maybe onto more of an overreaching pick is a good way to punish him further.
Yeah, the solid note button to interrupt that Lee Sin, but we'll have to see if he's going to go for something aggressive. That Aurelia that you talked about, the undefeated Aurelia that has since been taken down.
But with the asterisks on that, EDG themselves were undefeated over the regular split, so it really doesn't say that much about Mouse's Aurelia
Let's be
skills
clear, yeah, like,
specifically.
people are going to assume that this guy is like the god of top lane. Really, they're just a very good team, and Aurelia immediately going to be taken off the table.
And at this point, we see EDG hovering over the Syndra. A couple of other picks available. The Sivir that we've seen a lot of teams prioritize highly. For iNTZ, suddenly they kind of have to almost default to a Vladimir at this point. With the Aurelion Sol off the table, we've seen people try the Cassiopeia matchup. Doesn't always work out, so likely at some point we may see the Vlad come out.
Yeah, the champions being picked into Syndra are Vladimir, Varus, as well as Cassiopeia. Vladimir picked most into Syndra simply because how his W is really going to work and give him a lot of safety in that lane. Pretty much with Syndra, since this is the Fog of War Vision stream, it's cool to kind of talk about her and how she fundamentally changes vision of the game. So typically whenever a champion has multiple titles, like they get to be an assassin, they get to be a control mage, they get to, you know, like multiple titles on their they tend to be a little bit overpowered. And I think Syndra's kind of in that spot where she's just a bit overtuned to everything that she brings, but she fundamentally changes the vision game because she has great control over the lane, and as soon as she gets that control, rotating out of that lane and rotating back suddenly becomes so much more dangerous, because if you walk into her, she's just going to punch you in the face.
We've seen that before, but speaking of champions with multiple titles, we've got our favorite bruiser, poke mage, top lane, flex pick, potentially mid laner, Jayce coming in on the side of iNTZ, so a lot of potential skill shots flying in out of Fog of War this game.
Deft is also in this game, could be an AD carry.
Well, yeah, it could be, but it's on the other side. So at this point,
I'm just saying, don't count out AD carry Jayce.
It's the triple flex. We've seen it
tournament's
before.
not over.
All right.
well, very similarly to how you're talking about Syndra and Vision, the other aspect that a lot of pros will tell you really pulled Syndra up is the ability to, you know, control multiple balls with the W and then throw 3 out and control just such a massive area with the stun. The same can be said in a damage perspective from Jayce. If you're not really focusing on Vision, that shock blast through the acceleration gate comes out of nowhere, chunks you for half health, and suddenly, you've got to run away from any kind of objective. So certainly we've got 2 potential mid laners here that we can play around with the Vision quite well in a Fog of War stream.
And interesting as we see the second rotation from EDG, we heard from the desk, RekSai did not see very much priority at all compared to week 1, but is now showing up again here in the EDG game in the hands of ClearLove.
Yeah, no surprise that ClearLove goes back to his comfort champions. The thing about ClearLove is his career has made him one of the most meta-resistant players to ever play the game, and he's been at the top of his game for probably the last year and a half. He didn't start that way in Season 2, but his biggest drawback is that he is very slow to adapt to new metas, which is why I think a primary reason why he continues to fail on the international stage, at least for Worlds, because he did have that MSI victory, is because he can't adapt very quickly. So he has to fall back to, you know, the Evelyns and the RekSais. I'm surprised that we haven't seen the Eve come out, although I do expect that that will be, you know, later on if they make it out of group stage towards the quarterfinals.
But what EDG have built here with the Tahm Kench alongside that and the RekSai is something you'll be fairly familiar with, because this is the style that EDG were playing a little bit more towards in their finals. On the other side of things, iNTZ with the Skarner, now with the Caitlyn as well. This is a pretty deadly trap. If ever you end up getting impaled, traps coming out underneath you if you're within range. The Alistar's there as well to secure the kill. So iNTZ are looking for one person and looking to take him off the map.
Yeah, that's a lot of go buttons on the side of iNTZ. If they want to start a fight, they have the tools to do it.
On the other side, though, it's a very comfortable composition for EDG. It's what I like to call their semi-global composition. And they run this all the time. It's how they just smash through RNG in their 3-0 final. You have Tahm Kench, semi-global presence with his ultimate. You have RekSai. If she sets up her neural network of tunnels appropriately, she can quickly get across the map. And then if you pair this with a Jhin, he's got such long range with that open up fan. And with this composition, EDG are very fast. They like to group together very early, and they like to get out of these lane phase and start flanking and diving towers at around 7 to 10 minutes.
And interesting, as you mentioned, the Jhin and the Rumble now locked in as well. A lot of potential team fighting strength if this team can get the appropriate setup, and really have to wonder what the final pick is going to be here for iNTZ.
more long range as well is the other side of this. You're talking about the Jhin long range. I want to kind of emphasize how crisp EDG were against RNG as well. You say diving.
That's the key word. They were very crisp.
You look at those 3 games and you're like, EDG, yes, this is brilliant. This is exactly what you like to see. Clean dives, clean fights, everything's great. You just win the finals. But couldn't really say the same. It wasn't quite the same playstyle for week 1, especially not the game against
Stress,
ITZ.
we call that the LGG trap.
Oh, don't remind me. I think Deft said it best in an interview that after iNTZ took them down, he just sat in his chair and he was like, I was shocked. I was stunned. I don't know how we got here. So EDG certainly looking for revenge, and the fact that they've locked in a very comfort comp for them says that they are taking this very seriously.
Absolutely. Of course, the final pick now is the Vladimir. You talked about the interaction early. Relative safety, as long as he has that pool up and available. Pretty hard to one-shot that guy. We saw in the Albus Nox and Luna game for Kira yesterday. It took every single piece of CC to keep that Vlad locked
That's
down.
the other beautiful thing about the Syndra into the Vladimir matchup is because he gets to itemize magic resistance so freely that it means that he can be one of the matchups that will survive Syndra. It's kind of the same train of thought with Arulian Soul, that he gets to itemize into that MR that he's able to push against her. On the other side of that, though, the reason why Vladimir's really fallen off in his win rate is because Morelos is such a key component of so many AP mid laners' builds, and it's just so punishing against him at this point.
It is. The Vlad is also fairly significant at this point because with the Rumble off the table, if Jayce had gone to the mid lane, you would be looking at like the only options is a cannon to bring AP damage, and at that point it's not quite the same playstyle. Now we've got a little bit more poke focused coming from the top lane, so trying to get that, you know, nice mix of AP, AD, everything for iNTZ.
Well, I'm really curious to see exactly how this one is going to unfold. Originally, once again, pegged as the horror movie stream. Not so horrifying for iNTZ as they look to find their second win against EDG here. But as we load up into game, I want to talk about vision and I want to talk about early jungle pathing. What do EDG need to be aware of? Where is ClearLove going to go?
Okay, so they gave away RekSai on blue side. If you watch the LPL at all, that is something that you do not do. If ClearLove retains his same jungle path that he has over the LPL, it should be 2 camps, Scuttle Crab, gank bottom, Deft first blood. That's pretty much how it went 90% of the time. Their ban rate on when EDG are on blue side, having RekSai taken away from them is almost 100%. So LPL teams do not mess around with that pick, and I expect that to be the standard pathing for ClearLove coming into this game.
Well, looks like iNTZ chose to take the gamble as we get into our first game of the day. Curious to see World Championship. Revolta, interestingly enough, with the Skarner. I feel like this is a pick that ClearLove himself brought out a lot. Well, not a lot.
No,
but
don't
debuted.
don't bring ClearLove into this.
Debuted.
Ambition and Skarner have been kind of the 2 big Skarner players of the tournament so far. I think that Ambition played it better. Skarner had a very weird style where he didn't really care for his Crystal Spires as much. Now, the issue is that when you take one of those, I don't want to call it Spire, that's such a weird word. Do I have to call it Spire?
Control points?
Control points. It kind of gives away your location. You don't know if it's Skarner that's standing on that control point, but you can assume. So it creates this really interesting mind game as Skarner looks to counter invade and counter jungle if he decides to take those points or not, because the enemy jungler can just look at this map and say, oh, a Spire was taken, obviously Skarner's in that area, and do what he will with that information. Yeah,
and that information game early on is going to be critical because the other half of this equation, we've talked about ClearLove on the left-hand side of the map and how he's going to play this out. Revolta, basically on Skarner, a lot of people will just try the farm up to 6 game, get that impale, and then try and make an impact. So Revolta kind of has the tendency now to sit back a little bit, which is almost against what Revolta as a player likes to do.
It's going to be interesting to see exactly how this unfolds. Of course, we're now early into the laning phase. Revolta starting on the red buff, and for a lot of this early game, I feel like we're going to have to focus on the junglers. Revolta just going for a standard clear, but the question is, where is ClearLove? Now, the one perk of doing this from the Fog of War stream is we can see
That's the name of the game, isn't it?
relative pathing. You can see that the Wolf Camp is already gone, and bot lane for EDG has already taken the Krug, so we can start to guess. Where is ClearLove going to go next? Where is he going to show up?
I talked about how normally his pathing is 2 camps, so it should be blue, and he doesn't have to take the blue because it is a RekSai, but either take a blue in a small camp or take the 2 small camps. In this case, it was the Wolf Camp, which is why Revolta is being chased out now. now, so knows that there's a possibility that Skarner's going to look for a full clear, that he's going to make that play bottom, and then the adaptation of ClearLove to say, I'm starting Wolves, I'm going to smite this to protect my blue. I don't need the blue because I'm a RekSai, and I'm going to move into the bottom side of the jungle, look for that Scuttlecrab, and then try to set up the gank.
And to some extent, you can see that that's exactly what iNTZ are preparing for, with that ward being placed down on the blue buff, just trying to track ClearLove. You would imagine now, if they've watched enough EDG games, that they should be able to know what's coming on the bottom side. And there's the attempt by Meiko as well, with ClearLove to try and take away the blue buff. So it's not so much a bot lane gank play here, but more just pressure on that bot.
Yeah, but using the pressure that
Right.
the bot lane had completed, so still very much in that same wheelhouse, in that same vein that we expect from EDG. So great follow-up adaptation, like you were saying, from Revolta to be like, okay, I see what you're going to do. Immediately runs to his wolves and smites that to get the safe vision.
Oh, now Syndra just going to take that one away, but Jockster going for the early engage. Lots of aggression, potentially. Blue buff does go over to Scout. Jockster in trouble. Snare not going to
good
connect.
dodge.
ClearLove not going to get the knockup, but first blood dropping for EDG. It may not be for Deft overall, but ClearLove going to take it.
But that's exactly what we said would happen, and it's executed. This is why LPL teams do not give ClearLove on blue side. It is very telegraphed, but when you have a jungler like Skarner, what Stress was talking about is your early game is so limited. There's just only so much you can do on that champion, and EDG just took full advantage of that and their control over the bot wave.
And you can see the force that Revolta basically has to make now. He has to go into the enemy blue side and try and get something done. Now the trap he's running into here is if tockers hadn't pushed mid lane out and didn't have that pressure in the mid lane, now Revolta would be in serious danger from ClearLove coming down. They don't have vision on the top laner either, so Mouse could very well be in the jungle, but you can see now that he appears in lane, Revolta a little bit more fortunate on that. More to do with the timings on the recalls and having not used TP at this point. We have that luxury as well. We can see both sets of summoners.
Nice place to be, of course, to see ClearLove finally moving onto the top side. Revolta not actually able to take much away there in the end, so definitely just advantage to EDG as they look to extend their gold lead to about 1,000. And it looks like Scout is going to pick up another blue buff here.
Yeah, unfortunately this means that iNTZ will get 3 buffs, because I believe Syndra walked away with the enemy blue buff. And not the greatest situation. Skarner's okay, especially if he controls his Spires when he's in his own jungle, because it will help him get around faster, be able to keep topped off as he pushes through. It's not super important for Vladimir, so it won't be as punishing, but really it's just more so the fact that Syndra gets back-to-back chained blue buffs and gets to abuse that matchup.
Additionally, I mean, it might be underappreciated, but that's a decent influx of gold, too. Not only are you able to bully out your lane, you've also got an extra 100 or so gold in your pocket to move that much further ahead, and already putting a lot of control into this lane against Tockers. It's a pretty brutal early game.
Yeah, you can see that Scout, with the time he spent out of lane, didn't actually recall fully, didn't actually get a buy-in, so looking for the build path towards that Morellonomicon. They're going to need that because they're not running the Ignite on Meiko here, so no cutting through the healing of Vladimir very early on in any exchanges, but obviously Vlad, the later through the game, that's where he's going to have his bigger impact. And as we can see, Scout shows bot.
Out of the bushes, it's the horror stream for iNTZ. Jockster trying to taxi his way to safety, but out of nowhere, 4 people into the bottom lane and down.
So I said it was going to be around 7 minutes. We were about a minute shy right there. It's 6 minutes, but that's really because we had the snowball going, because ClearLove was able to pick up that first blood in the initial jungle roam. But this is clean-cut EDG in the LPL finals. This was the exact same composition that they rolled over RNG with. This is how they execute it. This is a beautiful dive into a beautiful first tower.
Exactly, and it's so comfortable. That's the word that you were using in Champ Select as well. You can see Deft started with a longsword start that we started to see a little bit more on Jhin, and has a massive CS advantage from the lane already. So all this is compounding this. Revolta had just recalled from the bottom side. Double stun comes out here, really nice onto micaO to set up that first
And
kill.
ultimately, even if Revolta was a part of this, it gets more dangerous because you're trying to dive 3 people, but he's just a level 4 Skarner. And like you said, Skarner isn't really that useful until post level 6, so just really abusing the champion matchup further.
And you know where else Skarner isn't quite so useful either?
Oh, tell me, Stress.
When all your lanes are not winning. When your lanes are not ahead, Skarner is such a difficult champion to play. We normally see wins when you have winning lanes. Skarner goes in, grabs someone, you set the lane up, it's great. Everything's perfect. But from behind, not so easy.
I feel like every Skarner performance is like he's sitting, he's farming his jungle, he's like, 10 minutes, guys. Just make it to 10 minutes, we're fine. And then around like 30 or 25 to 30 minutes when he has like his Trinity Force, if he decides to go that build, he's like, I'm a god! Look at me wiggle! Until then he's like,
but how many of those games are where like, it's 6 minutes and there's a 3k gold lead? Although some aggression here for Yang as he may try to get a bit damage back, maybe get some gold back here, but just Really interesting adaptation. iNTZ camped top so hard last time, but are not giving it any attention this time around.
Because he doesn't have the tools to do it. He has to, you know, space needs to be created or safety needs to be created for Revolta to farm up so he can camp top. And speaking of camp,
here's EDG top.
That's a lot of members. Goodbye to Yang, unfortunately. And a nice little side meal for Meiko as he saves his 80 carry there.
Well, there's the 7-minute dive, just about. They fit 2 in the space of 1 from the finals. But again, it's utilizing the roams that they have, very simply just going to target Yang. He seemed to be starting to get a little stronger after that Hex Drinker buy, but it was not quite enough.
iNTZ, excuse me, are trying to actually make a very aggressive play right here. They're trying to catch Scout as he rotates back into the mid lane. Good flash, although he's still technically in dive threat.
Tockers use the
They're
pool
rolling
already.
up top lane.
And this is all because now Revolta has level 6.
Yep.
He has that Impale, so if they can get onto somebody and get that Impale to work for them, the problem is the timing was a little off in the jungle. They caught Scout and pushed him out, and the flash came out and couldn't close the distance before Revolta could get
There
that.
goes ClearLove.
And a terrifying spot to be as ClearLove makes his first back and picks up a completed Cinderhulk 8 minutes into the game.
A lot of people talk about how, I say this all the time, it's probably one of my most controversial opinions to have. A lot of people think that it was an AD carry that picked up Wei Xiao's mantle, but I actually think it was ClearLove. ClearLove shares a lot of similar traits that made Wei Xiao famous. Wei Xiao most notably known for his Ezreal play and how he would use the Ezreal ultimate's cross map to push waves. If you notice what ClearLove's been doing on RekSai, he just pushed that bottom wave in that Yang had to respond to, and he does this all the time. You'll see him on Nunu jungle, you see him on RekSai jungle, it's just a bit easier on RekSai. He'll go to a side wave and he'll just start farming it and pushing it. And something that he likes to do is create that 6-man of those big super waves and then use his RekSai ultimate to then apply pressure to the opposite side of the map. So continue to watch how ClearLove creates plays for his team by setting up waves.
And while you want to take a look at kind of the more historical players in China, Twitter wants us to take a look a little bit more at Brazil. We have a question coming in from The Sizzler with 2 E's.
That's
nice.
Excellent.
How many
name.
Zs?
Double Z as well.
double Z.
Given how ANX Luna did yesterday, do you think iNTZ will perform? Do you think we will see 2 wild cards advance?
My gut reaction this week is for iNTZ is going to be no. Unfortunately, I don't think we can. They showed us great play in their first game, but I feel like the level of them iNTZ compared to the competition is a little lower. When you look at ANX, they were making fantastic map plays constantly in the early game and through the early mid game, and they were earning the leads themselves. For iNTZ, they're a little bit more sitting back, and I don't think you can afford to do that against the teams in this group.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. It's just the way that Albus Nox Luna were winning is very different from the way that iNTZ have been finding their wins. I'm not going to call it cheese because it was very well executed, but you know, just like hard camping a lane. Whereas Albus Nox Luna proved that statistically they can play from behind and they can win those games through superior 5v5 ability, and iNTZ just unfortunately have been a little bit on that back foot. Is it possible? Definitely. They have some great key players like Revolta, like Yang on the roster, but frankly, pound for pound, talent for talent, they're pretty much outmatched across the board except for that top lane.
I think could iNTZ get out of this group if they were constantly playing as aggressive as they were against EDG? Yes. Do I think they can do it sitting back like they did against H2K? No, because unfortunately AHQ are going to out-team fight you, EDG are going to out-team fight you, and H2K will get a lane phase lead that eventually should lead into a win.
Especially with this composition, they pretty much have 0 early tools or threats. You have the Skarner, you have the Vladimir, you have the Caitlyn. All of these champions, Skarner's going to find his effectiveness, you know, once he has that ultimate, but Vladimir and Caitlyn are sitting back and waiting for their core itemization to come out. So iNTZ's ramp time, like, they have to almost give away their entire early game or just try to sit and farm out the early game.
Well, and that's something I want to point out here, because while iNTZ are placing down some early vision, some defensive wards to try to stay safe, you saw Meiko and ClearLove going in and clearing that out, and every time we see these guys show up in the iNTZ jungler, things just get a little darker, things just get a little bit scarier, because you can't quite be sure where ClearLove is. You're lucky if he's there to clear a ward, but he may just be there to kill you.
However, iNTZ EDG know exactly where Revolta is. They just had the ward on him in the jungle, pinged down on him. I believe may have even been the Spirit that spotted him out, and they can see how far up the lane Yang is as well. So with mid lane off the map, with top lane, and with jungle off the map, you've got to be careful of people coming up through that top jungle.
And you can definitely see how micaO.
There's the tremor sense.
Yeah, and Jockster are positioning right now. It's ClearLove, he was spotted out by iNTZ when he was taking the Scuttle Crab, and they knew that the immediate dive was coming through, but this is just EDG waving around their gold lead that they have, and they're going to take every tower as quickly as possible.
And this is a conscious choice now out of EDG. They can if they were under enough threat, use mouse teleport to get down to the bottom side. I believe he even just used the equalizer perhaps in the bottom side, but it was in Fog of War, but can't quite get confirmation. He did use it somewhere on the map. But again, they can protect the bot lane tower. Even with Yang having 3 points in hypercharge, it's not enough yet to chunk through that tower on his own, if they were to use that TP for it.
He's whittling away. We'll have to assume that
They want mid lane.
Mouse is on the way, or maybe looking to set up a bigger play, as you
No,
mentioned.
they definitely want to break mid lane. If you trade mid tower for bot tower, that is very much worth EDG because this tower will give you more control on the map. So, like Stress is saying, they could defend bottom. They are making a conscious choice that this is more important, but iNTZ are making a great choice to say, we can't give them any more. Let's try to get a flank.
And I have confirmed that Equalizer was used to clear the bottom side wave, then just backing off, now returning. So at the end of the day, no one is going to be grabbing an additional tower as it looks they trade back and forth. But on the subject of vision, control, we have another question from Twitter. Ninja O Heaven, the Irish ninja, asks, when is a tracker's knife not useful anymore? When should I get another smite instead?
Ooh.
I think a tracker's knife actually has a lot of value throughout the game, simply because, especially late game, when everyone loses their spots to buy pink wards, the tracker's knife is still available. That you can place that vision down. Those 55-minute Baron setups or objective setups, as we saw in Albus Nox Luna versus Rocks Tigers, are so punishing if you don't have correct vision control.
And I think especially since we've seen the drop-off of a lot of Sightstone junglers as well, without that added ability. Again, it's also somewhat champion and player preference. If you're running a champion like Skarner, sometimes we'll see Blue Smite come out
So
just to close the gap
get
and
on top of
effectively
them.
get it. So it's really champion dependent, but if you're looking for control, it's always going to be useful.
The curtain call is the harbinger of death here, and micaO seems to be first on the menu. Revolta tries to make his way in. He's just as quickly going to make his way out. Jockster doing his best to disengage, but once again, EDG, the second you let your guard down, they show up out of the darkness to collect their due. Yang, though, is making some work on the bottom side. The triple hit on the hammer, not going to be enough to clear that out there.
Again, Mouse could use his TP here, but Scout is already defending, so potentially mid lane will see it. But like EDG are holding on to this TP for a very long time, and I like it. I'm not calling them out on it. I think it's actually very smart because the way they're reacting is they're constantly getting the better of the trade without having to use summoner spells. And it's something that a lot of teams will have just thrown that teleport away, thrown it into the bottom lane just to defend, but they can see that Scout can do it alone.
It's just, they're at such a point in the game where it's just terrifying to be iNTZ because you do not have any control on the map, it feels like. EDG gets to set the pace for everything, and you just have to see what's going to come to you. And in the case of this replay, it's 4 members of EDG and a lot of ultimates.
But there's no reason that Jockster and micaO should be up that far forward farming. I mean, it's super easy to say that hindsight 2020. Well, of course, because they got ganked. But if you actually just look at their vision, the only vision that they have underneath them, they have zero control over the neutral river. They just have that tiny little brush warded underneath their red buff. And against a champion like RekSai, who has so much flexibility to go around walls and has very creative and unique gank paths, it's just not respecting the enemy champion that you're looking across from.
Well, and even sadder than that, it's not just unique gank paths. When we look at this bush right here, the tri-bush wasn't warded either. Literally
They only had the red buff
coverage.
warded.
Yeah, there's zero coverage there for iNTZ, and I feel like luckily they have Revolta here this time to back them up. They are putting down better vision now, but they're just setting themselves up in the exact same spot.
It's a mid-tower trade, though, for this. Whatever iNTZ are doing on the top side, effectively they're always going to lose out because they've just lost mid-tower. Again, EDG are just taking control of the vision at this point, and we're talking about unique gank paths and that, and for iNTZ it's so difficult as Mouse gets engaged upon.
Mouse looking maybe for the outplay, does get exhausted, does want to get back under the tower, is going to get taken down by micaO in the end.
This is a trade for an Ocean Drake, because that's where EDG are, and then they're going to grab a wave top lane. They do have the TP, so he shouldn't teleport back to it because they'll just dive him and kill him again. I actually think that this is a better trade for iNTZ because they are taking the structure gold as well as some map control. But ultimately, what EDG really wanted was they wanted more pressure in the mid lane. They gave up Mouse positioning, and this is frankly just a mistake for Mouse. He should have just backed off. There's no reason to die here.
Right, there's no reason to die. The thing is, again, it's one of those situations of, I guess, how far back do you go with the trade?
No. Yep. Flash in, Yomu's proc, Yang running for his life. Stun doesn't connect. That's good news for iNTZ, but there's just too many members, too many long-range ults. I mean, the curtain call comes out, but it's just icing on the proverbial cake there because he was already dead to rights.
And unfortunately, iNTZ can't continue to push through on the top side of the map simply because EDG already had the wave behind them and then got the pick on top of it. So there's no way that they could trade. Like, if they ever got into a race in that scenario, EDG would defiantly win it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually like the vision that iNTZ has on the top side right now. Problem is, a lot of where EDG are playing through is on the bottom side of the map. So they established this vision from getting the tower trade up in the top side, but can't do anything with it right now.
And that's why it was so punishing the fact that Yang was caught out, because he needed to be that safe Jayce to wave clear and to slow down any play that EDG were making on the bottom side of the map, so iNTZ could continue to start to trade. Because right now, because EDG have such a massive gold lead, whenever iNTZ can trade an even objective, that's always iNTZ winning because they're the team behind. At this point, EDG should be able to force iNTZ to never make a fair trade and always put them in a spot where they want to fight them and abuse their gold lead.
A lot of poke coming down there in the mid lane. I was going to start asking you guys about Baron Vision, but it's 18 minutes. We're well away, but it's been such a fast-paced game. I mean, what have EDG been doing to really speed up the pace of this game?
I know you guys are from Europe, but in LPL...
we just go for Baron.
This
like
is
20
just,
minutes on the nose.
This is the commonplace speed of games.
Ah, I see.
It's
This
also,
is insane.
for iNTZ as well, iNTZ are known as one of the more macro-heavy teams in the CB LoL. So they're also not really used to this super fast-paced game. This isn't how they like to play as Jhin Ultimate opens.
Once again, this is just a dirty combo. Jockster having to flash for his life. Snare not going to connect, but I feel like we have the perfect comp for the Fog of War stream, but unfortunately the game is very EDG favored right now, but you're getting to watch this comp run in full action because every time from the darkness comes the curtain call, immediately followed by the equalizer.
And you can see how many times EDG have done that by the fact that there's 6 kill participation out of 7 on Deft, and the fact that Deft is down in CS, which is not a problem for him when he's 3 kills to himself. So he is so far ahead from the global gold from all of the time spent out of lane that it really doesn't matter about the CS at this point. He is in such a comfortable position. Going for the non-Ghostblade build as well, so making sure that he has some crit. Going to try and get through some of those tanky frontliners. We've got an Alistar, we've got Skarner, who naturally ends up a bit tanky, plus a Vlad.
It's actually much more common in the LPL. It started to change up in the back half that Jhins would actually rush Infinity Edge. They moved away from the Essence Reaver build as well as the 2-item, excuse me, as I cough, Ghostblade build. SMLZ was pretty much the proponent for starting that. So it's not super unusual to see Deft's build like this as opposed to, you know, ignoring that Ghostblade, ignoring that Ghostblade.
One of my favorite things was when I was out here at Riot HQ, when just before Jhin got released. On release, I was watching Gypsy Lord, the creator of Jhin, running a build which was an Essence Reaver, like 3 Infinity Edges and a Bloodthirster, and his last hit was doing like 2.5k damage to things, which was just ridiculous. So I'm waiting for somebody to do that, but ClearLove, he's fine. Not getting
excellent mechanical day by ClearLove. For those who weren't aware, if you input buffer the RekSai tunnel as CC comes in, you can force finish the animation and you'll guarantee the tunnel. Unfortunately, if you start the animation before the CC is already queued up, you will get knocked out of it. So, solid mechanical play there from ClearLove, something we see from Peanut very frequently.
You should expect that though from ClearLove RekSai.
Oh, definitely.
My concern is still, you know, will the RekSai pick be enough to continue EDG success throughout this tournament, or will he be punished for not playing things like the Elise or the Nidalee?
It'll be curious to see how it develops. Full tank RekSai as well, not opting to go for the Tiamat. You can see iNTZ just struggling to hold onto their jungle. Very defensive vision coming out, and one of the perks of the Fog War stream is we have no idea what EDG can see right now.
No, it's really cool, kind of speaking about where iNTZ's position is, because again, their composition does really well late game, especially if it comes down to, you know, a single team fight. If they can stall that out long enough, they have so many tools like the Skarner ultimate that iNTZ still aren't down and out of this despite the gold deficit. What they need to do, though, is they need to move into this Baron area that was immediately pinged and is very dark, and they need to make sure that EDG can't take that for free. So they need to start moving in, preferably get control of Scuttle Crab, although that's incredibly dangerous, but at least creeping their vision line closer and over that area, because that's the #1 thing that EDG are working at right now.
The difficult thing is EDG have this additional play compared to what normally teams would do. Normally, if you're baiting Baron, you kind of allow people to come into the jungle, you're kind of hiding in a bush, and as soon as they come close, you can kind of catch them out. Problem is, EDG with this Tahm Kench can have a couple of people just waiting in the jungle and suddenly appear behind you. You bring in somebody like a ClearLove to, you know, deal some, well, bring some extra crowd control into the back of the fight, and potentially iNTZ have stepped way too far out of line, but...
And I mean, Alistar all burned there, but that's such an interesting spot to be because you just see Tahm Kench from the shadows, then the Prey Seeker from the shadows. Suddenly, EDG, you realize there's 3 members on the bottom side when you were so concerned about the Baron vision, and it just goes to show that iNTZ have to be so careful when they go anywhere on the map, whether they not have perfect vision control.
One of the most important wards that iNTZ needs to place right now is they actually need to get a ward down the mid lane. This sounds super weird because mostly people want a ward like rushes in solo queue, but actually what needs to happen is right where Tockers is standing when he's in that mid lane, if he just pushes forward a little bit past his tower, he needs to place a ward right there. And the reason why is it's such a high traffic area when you're moving between the big objectives like Dragon and Baron, and it gives you a lot of information. Actually, you saw Scout just place one, but it also gives you a great teleport location when these long lanes start getting opened up and someone can appear behind you and just wreck your day.
Traps being set up, but EDG are unconcerned, now determined to take down a tier 2 tower, and they're going to get it for free, at least for now, as Yang pushes in on the top side. Talker's potentially on the way.
And you can see how all of these trades end up kind of favoring EDG just in general, because they get an Alistar ult, they get a tower, they get these things that creep forward, and Talkers is a little too far forward, but they've got 2 Ocean Drakes. So every time these small little trades go in favor of EDG, they back away for a couple of seconds, and suddenly they're full health, full mana again, and they can reset for another fight. And it becomes very difficult for iNTZ to actually cope with, because they have to fully recall, have to re-establish vision control, and do things by the book every single time.
I'm actually very impressed in the fact that EDG haven't turned towards the Baron immediately. And to me, this says respect for iNTZ. Eventually, they'll probably get frustrated because they're not continuing to siege up advantages. They'll try to look towards the Baron to snowball and kind of finish out the game. But the fact that they're just trying to pressure their siege composition, that they're not immediately running to the Baron, tells me that, okay, let's play this super clean, let's play this methodical, let's not give Revolta an opportunity to make a 50-50 for the Baron. Because if iNTZ did steal it, that's a huge hiatus and a pause where they use the Baron, they get to absorb a lot of EDG's momentum, and they can help get this Caitlyn 2 or 3 item power spike. They can help get Vladimir into that late game, and it becomes much more terrifying for EDG.
Well, and good for iNTZ that they have finally set up that Baron vision. Now Meiko assuredly moving in to clear some of this out, does throw down the pink board. So EDG looking for a setup of their own, but the Scuttle Crab there guarantees that for at least a little while, iNTZ should be safe from the Baron attempt. But they're going to have to be careful as they move forward, because finally it looks like EDG, as you mentioned, maybe they're impatient, maybe they've decided that this is the next best move, but they are playing around the Baron.
Yang's also doing a good job in his side wave management. You can see him down on the bottom side of your screen, constantly making sure that that's pushed forward and forcing Mouse to respond to him. EDG, they want to set up a play in the mid lane, and they probably have Rumble hanging around. You can actually see Tahm Kench underneath the Baron pit, but they have that teleport, and they want to fight, but Yang is making it so EDG have to be 100% sure that if they pull the trigger here, they're going to get a good fight, because if not, Yang's going to take their inhibitor tower.
Flank spot to be theirs. 2 smokes going in. Here looks like to be the engage from EDG. Where is the Rumble? Where's the Rumble ult? That's the question to ask. Triple balls landing down. Maybe look for the force of a little follow-up. Jockster is in trouble. They're not even looking to engage from the side of iNTZ. They're just accepting the pick and trying to run out. A lot of CC comes in, though.
And that's just disastrous, the fact that they were able to pick a fight without even forcing the teleport from Rumble.
Exactly, and that's why they were kind of umming and ahhing about whether they wanted the fight, because Mouse had dropped off the map, and they were thinking, okay, Yang, we don't want to bring him across. Oh, Revolta.
Oh, no.
Dying with the
Press R
Skarner
to delete. Standard for Syndra thus far. I mean, Talker's doing what he can, but I think it's too little too late. He's going in. He's going to pull up. He needs to get that health back.
He'll get it back from the ultimate, so he's in a fine position.
I was terrified for a second.
No, that was
for
actually
that deadly flourish.
A really great move from Talkers, because it heals himself up enough that he's able to sit onto the tower with Caitlyn. So despite losing so many members and overall a bad trade for iNTZ, Talkers' aggressive forward positioning on his ultimate actually saves the objective. So very well played from Vladimir.
ClearLove. Oh, Jockster. There's no ult there. Alistar taken down. Now this segues perfectly. We have a Twitter question coming in from Sato Shiv, or rather, sorry, from Julian Carvajal. We'll get to you, Sato Shiv, in just a minute.
Pastry
Even
time?
with the nerfs, why do you think Alistar is now picked again? We just saw him get popped. We might see a micaO get popped as well.
Alistar never left the LPL. That's what I loved, is that we were in the boot camp and we were all like, oh, what support champion's going to get played? And Crepo was adamant. He's like, Alistar will never get played. And I totally understand Crepo's reasoning. You know, Alistar, he doesn't do well in that 2v2 matchup against a ranged support. It's all about controlling your lanes and your plays. But frankly, the LPL, they don't care about that. We saw it at MSI. They continued to play Alistar then. They continued to play it in the LPL. We never, moved over to the big Karma, Bard hype train. It was played a little bit, but it's just about that that playmaking skirmish ability, and that's what's been ruling the day on the Worlds tournament.
And I'm not going to make too many friends by saying this, but a lot of the reason why Alistar fits into that and that window is open is because some of the level we've seen here at Worlds this year has been fairly sloppy.
Yeah.
People taking engages in the bottom lane, stepping too close to brushes. Like, Alistar is an incredibly punishing champion. If you are even remotely out of position, you get Q flashed on, you're dead. That's the fight done. And unfortunately, that has happened so many times that it has this window where people aren't playing a sterile, slow 2v2 will just farm up and nobody tries to really engage out of anywhere
There's
style.
a perfect example in TSM versus RNG, I believe it is. And TSM actually set up the level 1 of the lane. Doublelift is on Jhin and Biofrost is on Nami beautifully. They've got the wave pushing, they get into it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Biofrost, I don't know if it's nerves or what, but as Nami, he just steps too close and he gives Mata a free pulverize into Uzi's boomerang. And suddenly all of that preparation that Doublelift and Biofrost had created is completely lost. And it's literally that moment is a microcosm for why Alistar has been so dominant.
Take one misstep and Alistar is there to punish.
You're on the world stage. Think of how nerve-wracking that is, especially for how many rookies we have attending this tournament.
I mean, you're going up against Uzi, Mata, two of the most famous players in their roles, and now iNTZ, no luxury to think about anything else. Scout just continues to delete people, and honestly, iNTZ are getting mopped up. micaO wants to do something, but ClearLove is too deep in. The double kill for Scout, dishing out the damage on the backside. Trying to keep the ball rolling. Meiko taking so much, tanking up the tower, but Tocker's going to move in to grab a kill.
Scout. That's the Quadra.
Scout looking for the Penta, not going to grab it. Quick denial coming from Tockers. A blue buff as well to back him up. A little bit of hope regained for the Brazilian squad.
Tockers is all of the hope for CB LoL right now. This guy is actually playing very well now that we've exited the lane phase. Was a little bit rough there initially. You can see that in his CS discrepancy, but he's pretty much looking around like, team, where you at?
Yeah, and he's got a problem incoming because Deft at this point, yes, he's up against a lot of tanks, which normally you'd want to go Lord Dominic's, but when there's only one person on the other side that can really deal with you, Mortal Reminder is going to shut Tockers all the way down when he actually goes for that armor penetration item, because you can see how this fight starts. Revolta gets deleted. I don't think we've even seen him use Impale in this game yet, and we are, what, 20, 30 minutes into this game, and no Skarner ults have been used. Double push out of Scout, gets another couple of kills through himself, and it's just EDG being so far ahead.
Yep, their gold leads speaking for themselves. I do want to highlight, like you said, Scout had really cool positioning in that he opened up the play by hitting multiple stuns on Revolta, layering that really nicely with the equalizer, but then positioning behind the wall, very much like what a Nidalee or a Jayce would do, and then hiding himself from the vision, flashing over the wall, and then hitting another double up of stuns as soon as the rotation was up.
Scout performing incredibly well. I want to hit another Twitter question while we have the opportunity. Sato Shiv, we brought you up earlier. I want to get you the chance to get in here. Who would you prefer, Skarner or Lee Sin? Keeping in mind, of course, that Lee Sin was banned this game by EDG, but if it was available, do you think who was the superior choice here?
I would go Lee Sin because I think Lee Sin does everything that Skarner does, but he also has an early game. So this idea that Skarner can immediately create a 4v5, it's harder to execute on Lee Sin. He's not the same frontline or disruption that Skarner can bring, but most of the time it's like it's that one impale, it's that one pick, but Lee Sin also gets to do that in the early game where he rocks up into a lane, he's like, what's up? Yeah,
exactly. And yeah, they're both fairly linear champions with what they do when it comes to their ultimates.
Binary, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they have one function, and yes, okay, they can play a tanky role. Yes, okay, that, you know, you can utilize a lot of their kit, but as you said, the early game is the difference for me.
Oh, Yang running for his life, Scout on the way in, looking for the outplay, isn't going to get it.
And I know this is a Fog of War stream, but I really kind of want to take a step back and kind of look at like big picture meta, like what is more important? Because we've seen these games that go super late, you know, Rock Strikers versus Albus Nox yesterday, that was like a 66-minute game, but frankly, I feel like early game, like if you have two teams of the exact same level and they face across from each other, the team that plays early game should win. There's so much more of a power given to structure snowball and structure gold. We see that in the fact that the first tower blood has been introduced alone.
Teleport from the Fog of War. We're
sir, do not play-by-play over my point.
I am going to play-by-play over your point because people are dying, Frostgren.
They've been dying this entire game. It's 15-3.
It's just a bloodbath.
Yeah, they've got
I
control.
like how you paused to let me play-by-play there. It's like, okay. It's a bloodbath. We'll be honest. 17-3, the gold lead mass in the favor of EDG. They have 4 dragons. We're only 30 minutes in.
Although the TP is coming second win. Take it away, Daniel. I was going to say that's why I value
Stun going in. micaO says bye. Ooh. Scout happy to send him off there. There's not a whole lot of play-by-play to do. And that's Revolta. Here it comes.
Oh, can
for
he?
Brazil.
The flash is
the
up.
hero. Will he do it? EDG taking the time.
The
No vision.
one wall.
No vision. No vision.
Get in there.
Get it. Oh. No! ClearLove gets it. The RekSai icon, very Skarner-esque for a moment. I thought it was possible, but in the end, it's not going to be there. I want to hit Twitter, so we got questions streaming in.
Doesn't even let you finish your point. Wow.
I'm sorry.
It's just why I valued Lee Sin, because I think early game is so much more important in the meta game.
Well, let's jump in for a question from Oratama then, who has a similarly jungle-related question. Oratama72 says, what happened to RekSai, to make RekSai stay meta when all the town criers said she was dead? Why no punishes? I like the little bit of salt and shade thrown in there, Oratama. The town criers. Just
dead.
excellent phrasing on the question, but let's talk a little bit about
So
RekSai.
RekSai was nerfed in that her armor stat went down. And so it basically made champions that were really good at dueling, or champions that had issues with dueling RekSai stronger. So there's someone like Graves, someone like Elise. The other big thing was the fact that Gragas was completely ejected from the meta since he has the cast time on his ultimate now. That said, yes, it makes RekSai technically weaker and not as cost efficient in her build paths, but she still gets to keep all of the goodies that she already has. She's a very heavy control jungler simply with her Tremor Sense. She's got great map control due to her neural network and her ultimate, so she's just slightly weaker, but she was already so amazing that I feel like it actually just put her in line and people just kind of forgot about her.
Exactly, and as we see iNTZ with a last-ditch attempt, I'll answer this after.
Yeah, you can just hold on to it. You can keep talking, honestly, because we've seen this one before.
Don't let him do it, Stress.
I'm just still hyped over Albus Nox Luna yesterday. I just want to play-by-play everything, and right now...
Power forward. This guy's just an over-glorified host on this stream.
Oh my god.
You put him in his place.
I don't need that Chinese fangirl. You calm down.
Oh wow, it's getting sassy up here. At this point, I mean, the point about RekSai, there were 2 jungle bans on the tip-top duelists that you're talking about. So this game could have seen an Elise instead of it, honestly. But as you say, ClearLove
doesn't play Elise.
Elise is not the factor. This game is EDG just running through, though. We can maybe talk about this in a sec.
But Elise would make a great champion pick for this composition because she still fits very well in everything that EDG are doing, which is diving at 5 and 7 minutes.
I would have liked it even in the iNTZ comp, actually. Instead of the Skarner, you wouldn't have lost a lot of the early game. Similar role,
really
but not the same.
Skarner,
as we're clearly going to see EDG win this game, spoilers for those who haven't been watching or have never seen a game of League of Legends, I suppose. What do you think is the main problem of hashtag iNTZ at this game, says Dia Glonago. As we come out of it, I want to know, what went wrong for iNTZ?
I mean, Stress said it best. All of their lanes lost, and they had a jungler who relied on having winning lanes to create space for him so he could power farm and get to a point where he's relevant in the game.
And it all comes from the early game tracking in that blue buff attempt over on the iNTZ side where, you know, they got the first blood of the game for EDG and suddenly Revolta got a wolf camp in response and that was about it. And it got triple buffed into a bot lane dive, into a top lane dive, and suddenly EDG are playing globals again and everybody should be terrified.
Yep. Looking much cleaner. This is the EDG that we expected to open up at Worlds. So again, Deft said it best. When they faced iNTZ, he sat in his chair. He was just stunned. He was silent. They did not expect that. But kind of coming into to round 2, week 2, EDG finally showed up. These are the contenders that we expected to be at the World Tournament. And that is one of their favorite compositions. They should not be allowed to have it.
I think absolutely teams are going to learn. We've seen the Worlds meta develop, but so often people can kind of forget what a team was famous for. Caught up in the Worlds meta. I mean, this time we saw EDG giving all of the deserved respect to iNTZ after their first game. Gnar, Lee Sin taken off the table, and honestly, iNTZ looked a little bit lost in picks and bans in terms of their goal, and were frankly outclassed in the early game, but this is the level of performance we were expecting from EDG coming into this tournament.
I think if there's one pick I would have liked to have seen iNTZ take away, which is obviously hindsight 2020, that Tahm Kench.
Yep.
It opens up so many options for them. I think everything else that you gave away perhaps is okay. I mean, you consider anytime Syndra is available blue side, that's going over, and they play the Vlad, that's fine. But I think the Tahm Kench one is that's a real big
second rotation of Alistar. Like, I agree with you. It's just like there's so many threats that you're then trying to eliminate from Meiko, and I feel like they did the best. Like, again, like there wasn't anything that you look at their composition, you're like, why did they play that? Other than maybe the Skarner, but you can still kind of get behind the mentality of it. I mean, iNTZ, this is no shade towards them. They should feel great about how they've done with the tournament. But frankly, this is just the expectations and just the difference in, you know, the #1 seed from the LPL versus the #1 seed of the CB LoL. So no slight against them. It's just how the
Of
cookie
course.
crumbles.
Yeah, at the end of the day, though, neither team confirmed out of groups or out of the running yet. But up next on the Player Experience stream, I'll be joined by Azael and Zig to break down the top lane matchup. But for now, we'll throw it over to the main stream where Dash and the rest of the analyst desk is breaking down that EDG win.